tusitishwe and don't be intimidated at all na porojo hii ya huko na huko, porojo tu watu wanaendelea huko. Porojo hii tumezoea, hii inaletwa wakati wa uchaguzi. Kila mtu wako na uhuru kufanya kampeni. Kazi yetu sisi ni kuweka usalama. Sisi hatuwezi kusikiza maneno kama hayo. Kazi yetu ni hawa wananchi hawa. Na sisi hawa watu nyinyi mmefaa kiraoni. Mtu akidhulumiwa kati ya hawa wananchi, hiyo ndio wakati tutakuwa na shida. Tulinde watu wetu. Tuhakikishe kwamba wananchi wetu wanakaa kwa amani, hakuna mtu anasumbuliwa. Sisi tuwasaidie, tuhakikishe kwamba tunawapea security ya kutosha, we support them, wasiwe harassed. And I've asked county commissioners and county security teams, hili ni jambo la muhimu, lazima sisi tuangazie mambo hayo ya kusaidia na kuhakikisha kwamba wenzetu wa kina mama ambao wanataka kuwania viti vya uongozi hawasumbuliwi na mtu yeyote eti kwa sababu wao ni akina mama.
Waziri, mimi nakuomba na tutasimama na wewe tukiwa nyuma yako. Ukae ngumu. Ile kazi umepewa na rais tufanye. Kama ni kunyorosha watu tunyoroshe, walie. Hiyo ndio ile kazi tumepewa na rais, na tutakuwa accountable kwa hawa wananchi na kwa Mungu kama tutawalet down.
That is the Principal Secretary in charge of Interior Affairs, Karanja Kibicho, and earlier on was Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of, again, Interior Affairs. They were responding to some comments that came from some allies of the Deputy President, William Ruto, sometime last week, and I want us to also listen to them to put this into context.
There is no way the ICT Minister, who we believe will be giving technical advice and the technical help to IEBC, should be going out there declaring their support to one of our competitors. It is also unacceptable for the person in charge of the entire police force in Kenya, the Minister for the Interior, and his defense counterpart, to purport and to be seen as partisan at this critical time.
And if the president, for whatever reason, requires these two ministers to be in his government, then he can move them to other dockets that have nothing to do with the election. But the good thing the president should do is allow these two ministers to go and become full-time campaigners for Raila Odinga.
Ndindi Nyoro and Rigathi Gachagua, there were several other members of parliament who spoke about this, including Alice Wahome and one Irungu Kangata, the Senator of Murang'a County. But Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, when you listen to politicians and also hear the bureaucrats or the government officers responding, what are we dealing with now? We are just 9 months to the election. What is this?
You know, these 9 months, some allow me to use this analogy, and I apologize in advance to anybody who may feel offended. But I think it portrays that we are behaving like a woman in labor. You know, a woman in labor can do and say anything because of the pain. So sometimes when you listen to my fellow leaders who are politicians, the Ndindi Nyoro team, it is amazing because whatever the comment that this ICT minister and the interior minister made, the comments I don't think I've read anywhere or heard that they said we will support Raila Amolo Odinga. I think, if I can remember well, they applauded and supported the handshake and the peace thereof. And so for somebody who is in charge of security, the interior minister, I think it is good to support anything that would make their work easier, the peace, so that there is nobody fighting anyone, and therefore their work is almost half achieved. Secondly, these ministers are actually appointed by the government of Uhuru Kenyatta, whom they are supporting, and the initiative of peace is the president's initiative. And in fact, even if it was not the president's initiative, I know, talking to people out there, Sam, the truth of the matter, what Kenyans really need is that reassurance of peace that they will always have a tomorrow. So when my colleagues are talking like that, I feel like they are sensing some weird butterfly pain, like the one that sometimes attacks mothers when their time is not even ready. Me, I want to see peace in this country. And if Honorable Matiang'i can ensure that everybody is peaceful, including the most weak person is protected, like is just said, then these people, we will all have our space to campaign, convince the voters, as we are saying here, that the voters need to be persuaded and to be given a reason why they are voting me, and that should be coupled by their sense of my capability of doing things in a manner that responds to their need. And I think we should not start making statements and interpreting things in a way that suits us to start making the country feel like there is something very wrong, and yet, according to me, so far so good, there is really nothing wrong.
Honorable Cheruiyot, of course, CS Matiang'i went ahead to speak about many matters, including how he is instructing the national government administrative officers to allocate more security, especially to women candidates. But he has also been a target of political name-calling. In 2017, it was coming from the ODM side. They were not comfortable with him. And William Ruto, the deputy president, was defending him, saying that CS Matiang'i is doing a job that he has been given by the president. Now, it appears the tables have turned. I'm just asking, what is the security minister, the interior affairs minister, supposed to be doing in an election year, and actually a transition election?
I think the Minister for Interior and his peers are got in between, because the people who seem to be not supporting the government of the day all the time, they feel some fear, they feel uncomfortable with their leadership, because they always think that these people are there to facilitate maybe the other team. And that is why you see shift of things. Like you've put it very well, when the deputy president were together with the president and working together, the other team were attacking the security team. Now it is vice versa. So the thing that the Minister for Interior is supposed to do, of course, is to remain steadfast, not to show any biasness, not to be seen to be leaning on one side, to put things in the balance. Of course, protecting the government all the time and making sure that law and order is kept. But then, of course, it will be read maliciously by the other team who feel that they are not supported maybe in what they are doing by government of the day. Of course, there's drift in things. And I, like any other person, you will appreciate the fear that that other team has. Okay. Because you see, 2017, let me put it.
Is it
2017...
is it founded or just fear? Do they have reason to be afraid?
To me, it is fear, suspicion, and incitement. It is fear, suspicion, and incitement of the followers.
So if... And
Kenyans. Let me finish. And Kenyans. So that they are putting them in a radar to feel like something wrong is about to happen, even when there is nothing that's going to happen. And for example, Sam, look at it like this. We have some of our members of parliament and some people who unfortunately verbal diarrhea.
Whoa, what is that?
Talking too much.
They are talking without actually putting some sense in their talk. Loose talk. So that in that loose talk, they talk to be seen like there's something which is coming that is very dangerous to Kenyans. They sometimes really warn people, other leaders, that if you don't do this, you will see us. And what is the Minister for Interior supposed to do? It's to come in.
Quite a bit of analogies coming from this side. Let me give you a break to come back. But Esther Sifuna, you know, one wonders, because when you listen to leaders talk and say that a certain government official is biased, they should be nowhere in the preparations for the election. Of course, CS Matiang'i has said that theirs is just to facilitate IEBC in supporting them, to ensure their security wherever, but it's IEBC to conduct the election. But when Your side of politics was against the CS back in 2017. What had you seen? And is the same being seen now, that DP side should be worried?
First, we were not against any CS. We were just saying, Sam, that in fact the Constitution dictates that these state officers must play a neutral role in these things. And unless, you know, you are supplied with evidence that somebody has endorsed Sifuna or so on and so forth, then it's a different case. I think what these guys are doing is they are psychologically preparing their followers for the defeat that is coming. They know it. Because some, even in 2017, we went to the election with this same cabinet secretary for interior. These officials were all there. The minister for ICT was not fired because, you know, we were going into an election. Again, some, we hear from them every time. They tell us they have numbers, even in parliament. The power to supervise ministers, cabinet secretaries, to oversight government still resides in parliament. There is nothing difficult for these guys because they always take photos at Karen and they show us a horde of MPs. I think they claim they're 150. Let them move a motion to remove Matiang'i. I mean, it is that simple. Because if you see a leader who has an actual path in law to deal with a problem, going to speak at funerals and crying to his people, it is a totally different intention. The intention is to prepare their people psychologically for them to come and play.
I think they were in a meeting.
It might as well have been a funeral because of all the crying, surely.
Let's just, you know what a funeral is. Do you remember something like Michuki and Nachuki? Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Yeah, I remember.
Who said it?
I remember. Yes. That is what I'm saying.
Who said it?
I don't remember who said it, but I remember hearing it.
It was Raila Odinga, the party leader of ODM.
This is what we have always said, Sam. We expect neutrality from all these public officials. And unless you can demonstrate that there's the actual bias, then there's really no substance in you making all this noise. We have borne the brunt of police brutality. I mean, we don't need to remind you of this. And we would still encourage and insist that if you are holding a state office, you be politically neutral, you allow the IEBC to be able to do its job. But let us not just, you know, in the absence of evidence of bias, crucify people.
And Vice Chair, you were once at the helm, and some of these analogies would come. When IEBC is having to deal with this, what must they do then? Because, again, the question of perception is pretty important in management of an election. IEBC last week held a meeting with the two CSs. The President of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice Martha Koome, was also there. They actually gave statements thereafter, and so many other leaders that were present. And the meeting was one to prepare the ground for handling of different issues that come up during the election. So IEBC, when this perception is starting to thrive, what are you left with?
In fact, it's just not about the role of IEBC. This is an area which is quite a challenge in any democracy, that security is paramount in an election year. And I couldn't agree more with Sifuna when he says any state officer should be apolitical, so that as they handle their responsibilities under the Constitution, they know that theirs is to guarantee all the candidates security they deserve, and every Kenyan deserves security as well. And I think I want to applaud CS Matiang'i for the order he gave the other day, or the directive he made, that security should be given especially to the women leaders. And this came after that incident that happened in Maralal to the MP, Honorable Naisula Lesuda. Her car was towed. Why would we start seeing such deterioration of civil action? Why? And again, against women. Women always bear the brunt when it comes to electoral violence. Top on the list, top targets by hooligans is always women. So I think there is a big role here for the CS to play. But again, it has to be within the confines of the Constitution, within the confines of the law. And IEBC must, as of the essence, now pull those synergies you are talking about with the government agencies. All security agencies must pull with the IEBC, and of course with the judiciary, as you saw last week. That was, of course, a good meeting. It prepares IEBC to envisage what is to come. And of course, when it comes to security, the whole country, initially we used to have some areas, like when during my time we had the MRC in Mombasa, then we had some areas in Nyanza, some areas here and there in Nairobi, you know, because of, you know, the temperatures that were rising. But I think we have seen that increasingly during election time, the whole country almost becomes a hotspot. So we have to be alert, and IEBC has to be alert on every aspect, anything that happens. So everything that is happening now, anything that is said by the leaders, they have to be alert. And remember, under the law, when the campaign period kicks in, they have the powers to even warn the political parties, to warn the candidates on their oath. They take an oath to abide by the code of conduct. They have a role to play there, so they have to be on the lookout. The other institution that should be on the lookout in terms of security is the NCIC, because you've seen leaders coming out with some, of course, utterances that are quite worrying. You've seen people talking things that can be hate speech. They border on hate speech, intimidation, incitement, and these must be checked. Otherwise, if they are not checked, we go into elections with a very, very poisoned and polarized environment that can easily spark off electoral violence in the whole country.
But when the PS in charge of Interior Affairs says, kama ni kunyorosha tunyoroshe, walie, how should the political class take that, especially those that have a perception that the state machinery is against them? And I say perception. I want to believe CS Matiang'i would say that, knowing the powers he has under the constitution and under the law. Tunawanyorosha na njia gani? He is the CS for Interior. So if there is a deterioration in civil out there, he has that responsibility to go and ensure order is restored, so that it does not escalate to something that would be anarchy. So he has that power to nyorosha, and you know, people can complain. Of course, people will complain, and the political class will complain, but he has to do it within the confines of the Constitution. Of course, we know very well that there is freedom of movement, there is freedom of association, but again, even the citizens and the political leaders must do everything within the law, and they should not overstretch the boundaries. Otherwise, if they border on criminal activity, then that is when they have to be nyoroshwad, as CS says. Gladys, what did you want to say?
I wanted to say you are putting the right question to the wrong person.
I'm a Kenyan and I see these things.
No, I was asking from the perspective.